Living full-time on a cruise ship. It sounds like the ultimate dream, right? No bills, no cooking, no chores, just turquoise waters one week, ancient Mediterranean harbors the next. Your neighbors? Friendly people on permanent vacation. Your home? A floating palace with pools, buffets, and Broadway shows. But here's the truth. Once you peel back the glossy brochures and Instagram-perfect photos, a very different story starts to emerge, a darker one. And it's a side of cruise ship living that most people never see unless they actually try it. I've spent years exploring this world, talking to people who've lived at sea for months or even years, speaking with crew members and testing it myself. And what I discovered might surprise you, because yes, the dream is real, but so are the sacrifices. Let's start with what draws people in first, the luxury. Cruise lines know exactly what they're selling. Endless indulgence, gourmet meals every night, Broadway-style entertainment, infinity pools and spa treatments, just an elevator ride away. You never go hungry, you never get bored, you don't have to lift a finger. But here's where reality kicks in. That lobster tail one, magical. By night 50, it feels like a reheated leftover. The comedy show that made you cry with laughter your first week, by the third time around, you can mouth the punchlines before they're even delivered. The buffet. Let's just say, after a few months, you'll start dreaming of making your own scrambled eggs at home. One long-term resident told me, "People think I'm living like a king, but it's like living in a resort that never changes. The scenery outside shifts, but inside, it's the same people, same menus, same shows." That's the first crack in the fantasy. The ship was built for short-term excitement, not permanent living. Then there's the money. On paper, cruise ship living looks cheaper than rent in a big city. You might find repositioning cruises or long-term packages for around $100 a night, roughly $3,000 a month. Compare that to rent in New York or Sydney, and it seems like a bargain. But the catch is, cruise ships are floating revenue machines. Everything on board is designed to get you to spend more. Drink packages, shore excursions, spa treatments, casino nights, specialty restaurants, even laundry. Wi-Fi alone can cost $20 to $30 a day. A single shirt for laundry, $5. Bottled water, not always free, and it doesn't feel like spending. Everything goes on your cruise card. No cash changes hands. You don't notice it until you check out, and by then, the total hits like a tidal wave. I've spoken to people who thought they'd spend $3,000 a month and ended up spending double. That's $6,000 to $7,000 a month, more than many luxury apartments on land. So yeah, the cheap luxury lifestyle. It's often a financial trap. Now let's talk about your cabin. People imagine sipping coffee on a private balcony, watching dolphins swim by. But unless you're wealthy, the reality is probably an interior cabin, no windows, around 150 square feet. That's smaller than most bedrooms, except you're cramming your whole life into it. There's barely enough room for clothes, let alone hobbies. The walls are paper thin. You'll hear your neighbor's late-night TV or snoring, and forget privacy. Some adapt. They make it cozy. They decorate. But others feel the claustrophobia set in fast. One couple I spoke with lasted 6 months. They said it felt like living in a closet that rocks back and forth. And here's the thing. Cruise cabins weren't built for permanent living. Closets are tiny. Storage is minimal. You'll be forced to live like a minimalist whether you want to or not. It sounds romantic until you try it. Then you realize your cabin isn't your sanctuary. It's your cage. Now let's talk about the mental toll. On paper, you're surrounded by thousands of people. But in practice, it can feel incredibly isolating. You're cut off from normal life. No coffee shop, no dinner with friends, no family visits. Your entire world becomes whoever's on the ship that week. And most of them, they're gone in 7 days. You might meet someone you connect with, share dinners, go on excursions, and then they disembark, never to be seen again. Over time, it starts to feel like you're stuck in a revolving door of temporary connections. And the ship itself, it can start to feel like a bubble. Same hallways, same lounges, same everything. For vacationers, that's fun. For long-term residents, it's stifling. Psychologists call it the gilded cage effect. From the outside, it looks like paradise. From the inside, it feels like confinement. One retiree told me, "It's like Groundhog Day, except the scenery outside changes. Inside, it's always the same." And that brings us to your health. Cruise ships bring thousands of people together in close quarters. Every week, new passengers come aboard, each with whatever virus, cold, or bug is going around. On land, you can avoid crowds. On a ship, you share buffets, elevators, even the air systems. Norovirus, flu, COVID, they spread fast. And if you're on board full-time, your exposure is constant. Sure, ships have medical centers, but they're designed for minor issues. Twisted ankle? You're fine. Stroke or allergic reaction. You might need to be evacuated. That can cost tens of thousands of dollars, often not covered by insurance. And then there's the slow health decline. Buffets packed with fried food, unlimited desserts, endless cocktails. Most people gain weight. Routines fall apart. Gyms on board are often small and crowded. Serious training? Good luck. Add the constant movement of the ship, and even simple exercises become tricky. Several long-term residents told me they gained 20 to 30 pounds in their first year. Not because they were lazy, but because the environment wasn't built for sustainable health. Let's not forget the social gap between passengers and crew. At first, it feels like one big family. Bartenders remember your drink. Room stewards greet you by name. But look deeper, and a divide appears. Crew work 10 to 12 hours a day, 6 or 7 days a week. They sleep in shared cabins below deck. They eat in crew mess halls. Their lives are entirely different. Even if you build a friendship with a crew member, strict rules limit how close you can get. Relationships are often forbidden. Interactions are monitored. So if you're a long-term resident, you're in limbo. Not a tourist, not part of the crew. And that space in between, it's a lonely place to live. Then there's the revolving door. Every week, thousands of new passengers arrive. Thousands leave. At first, it's exciting. New people, new stories. But eventually, it becomes exhausting. You get to know someone, then say goodbye. Again and again and again. One woman told me, it's like being the kid who has to stay after school while everyone else gets to go home. The only constants are other long-term residents, often retirees with different lifestyles and priorities. And if you're younger or have different interests, that disconnect can feel massive. Emotionally, it starts to wear you down. Now let's talk about logistics. Living on a cruise ship sounds simple. Buy a ticket, move in. But reality is messier. Taxes, for example. If you're at sea for 10 months of the year, where do you file? Are you still a tax resident of your home country? Do you qualify as an expat? Then there's healthcare. Most insurance policies don't cover life at sea. Prescriptions? You'll have to time port stops carefully. Miss a stop? You might miss your meds. Visas can also be tricky. Most passengers are fine for short visits, but living on board long-term, that raises red flags. People have been denied boarding over passport or visa issues they didn't even know applied. Even getting mail becomes a hassle. Some people use mail forwarding services. Others rely on family back home. It's never seamless. So no, this isn't just a vacation with no end date. It's a lifestyle that demands constant juggling of legal, financial, and logistical details. And even the adventure, it fades. At first, waking up in a new place every few days is thrilling. Beaches, cities, fjords. But after a while, the novelty wears off. Caribbean islands all start to look the same. Souvenir shops, same crowds. Even Europe loses its magic when you're rushing through it for the 5th time. The thrill of travel becomes a routine. And the very thing that made the lifestyle so exciting, it starts to feel predictable. Then there's the fact that cruise ships aren't permanent homes. They're built for vacations. So when something breaks, plumbing, power, mechanical issues, your entire life is affected. Storm reroutes, port cancellations, fires or virus outbreaks. For a vacationer, it's an inconvenience. For someone living aboard, it's a disruption of your home. And that creates a low-level anxiety. Because deep down, If the ship goes down, so does your entire lifestyle. Put all of this together, the costs, the confinement, the health risks, the emotional drain, and you get the biggest hidden cost of cruise living: burnout. It doesn't happen all at once, it creeps in. First, you stop going to the shows because you've already seen them. Then you skip dinner in the dining room. It's the same menu again. Then you stop getting off at ports because you've already been there 10 times. And one day, you wake up and the dream feels like a grind. For some, that's the breaking point. They leave the ship behind and crave normalcy, chores and all. For others, they adapt, but the dream becomes less about freedom and more about coping. And that's why most people don't sustain cruise living long term. Not because it's impossible, but because the reality is so different from the fantasy. Now, is it all bad? No. There are people who thrive in this lifestyle, who love waking up to new horizons, who enjoy the simplicity, and who find joy at sea. So if you've ever dreamed of living on a cruise ship, try it first. Book a 30, 60, or even 90-day voyage. Get a real taste of it before you commit. And if you're considering it, I've linked some of the best cruise deals in the description. You'll also find a free guide I put together, 50 cruise hacks to save you money, avoid rookie mistakes, and make the most of your voyage. Now I want to hear from you. What's the wildest, funniest, or most surprising thing you've ever seen on a cruise? Share it in the comments. I love reading your stories, and if you want to go deeper, check out the video on screen now. It'll take you further behind the scenes into cruise life, exposing things most passengers never notice. Your voyage is just beginning.